There are definite disadvantages to being married to a career-oriented workaholic. Trust me, I'm living proof of that. I've been married to Marie for 5 years now. I love her to death, but it's pretty clear that her top priority is her career as a biochemist. In fact, it's a good thing that we started dating back in college, as I'm sure she would turn down dating now as it would cut into her work life. Luckily, not only did I start dating her before she started her career, but we also got married after graduation and before she started her job at Biodyne. Even that was no easy task. She was convinced that being married would be a deterrent to employers, fearful that she would take time off to have kids. Somehow, I managed to convince her that employers would have that concern regardless of whether or not she was married, and that being married would at least alleviate their concerns of her trying to have a social life. Aside from the occasional late night or weekend at work, her career hadn't caused any major problems for our relationship. Except one. The topic of having kids was the source of many a fight between us. After being married for 3 years, I was all set to have a kid. Although she too wanted to have kids, she kept wanting to put it off until she was where she wanted to be in her career. As luck would have it, about a year ago, Marie became pregnant. We had been using birth control since she wasn't ready yet, but accidents happen. They say birth control is not 100% effective, and it looked like we were one of the few couples to beat the odds. I, of course, was ecstatic at the news. Marie had mixed emotions. On the one hand, she was happy to have a child on the way. On the other hand, she was fearful that it would have a negative effect on her job. It turns out that Marie's fears were somewhat justified. In addition to having to take time off for doctor's appointments and more serious bouts of morning sickness, the company pulled her out of the lab, worried that exposure to some of their products might pose a risk to her or her child. She was relegated to working in the virtual lab where everything is done by computer simulation. She didn't much care for that, but she kept at it, trying to keep her employers happy. She worked until the very end. Literally. She was at work when she went into labor. And she kept working until her coworkers finally forced her to go to the hospital. About 5 hours after she arrived, and about 4 after I arrived, she gave birth to our beautiful baby daughter, Melissa, weighing in at 7 pounds and 3 ounces. Marie was anxious to get back to work and returned just 2 weeks after giving birth. I agreed to quit my job and play Mr. Mom to Melissa. It made perfect sense, really. Marie was definitely the breadwinner in the family, and my salary would be almost completely gobbled up by childcare costs. But there was still one last issue to address. Feeding. More specifically, breastfeeding. We had originally tried to have Marie pump some milk and store it at home for me to give Melissa. However, Marie was not happy with that arrangement. She felt that pumping at work was too much of an inconvenience. She was still being kept out of the labs, and she felt the male scientists were leering at her and her enlarged breasts. There weren't many female scientists at Biodyne, let alone attractive, lactating ones. So we were left to come up with an alternative. Well, switching over to formula seems like the obvious answer, I said to Marie. I don't want Melissa taking formula. She won't get any of the benefits of breast milk on formula, she replied. Benefits? The health benefits of breast milk are enormous. Breastfed babies have a superior immune system to formula-fed babies. Plus, they're less likely to have weight issues, dental problems, and there have been studies that even show breastfed babies are more intelligent. Marie said. Well, if you don't want to feed her formula, and you don't want to keep pumping, then what's left? I asked. You could feed her, she said. I have been. But how does that help with the breast milk issue? I mean, you could feed her breast milk. Your breast milk, Brian, she said with a very serious look on her face. I don't know how to break this to you, honey, I replied, but I'm not lactating. And, I'm a guy. I know. But you can. You have the equipment necessary to feed Melissa. There have been several incidents throughout history where men have had to breastfeed their offspring. It's totally possible. It's just a matter of triggering your milk production, she said, still in a very serious tone. So, I just let her suck on my nipples until I start lactating? I asked, not sure if she was truly being serious. We don't have time for that. At best, it would take several months before you started producing enough to feed Melissa. Biodyne's Animal Sciences division has this hormone compound that is given to cows to start and increase milk production. All the tests I've done has shown that it should work on humans, she answered. So, you want me to grow a pair of breasts to feed Melissa? You'd probably only develop A cups. And given your 6 feet 5 inches, 240 pounds frame, they would barely be noticeable, she said. Clearly, she had given this a lot of thought. And afterwards? They'll shrink back to normal size, just like what happens with women. What about sex? I asked. Won't those hormones interfere with that? Only for a couple days. The hormone compound is fast-acting. About 2 days after the injection, your body will start producing milk. At that point, the compound will be cleared out of your system, and you should be performing normally. You'll just need to keep up with feeding Melissa and pumping to keep your milk flowing. She made a pretty convincing case. I couldn't find any logical reason to say no. I have to admit, I did find the opportunity to bond with my baby in a way that only mothers can to be very appealing. How long would I have to feed her? I asked. At least until she's 2. 2? I interrupted. Yes. Surgeon Generals have recommended breastfeeding until 2 years so the child gets the full benefits. Afterwards, we'll start to wean her as she switches over to solid foods. I wasn't thrilled about the 2 years, but the feeding and pumping seemed like a small inconvenience. I agreed to do it. So when do we start? I asked. I'll grab the necessary items on Friday. You won't feel like doing anything as the drug takes its toll on your body. If we do it over the weekend, I'll be able to care for Melissa while you rest. Wait, what? It's nothing to worry about. The drug will burn a fair amount of calories, so you'll be very tired until it clears out. So I had 3 days before I would begin my journey to being a milkmaid or whatever the male equivalent would be. Milkman? I did have my moments of doubt throughout those 3 days. However, they usually dissipated every time I fed Melissa from the bottle. Having her there in my arms, I couldn't help but think how great it would be to be able to breastfeed her. On Friday afternoon, Marie came home with a large paper sack and went to the bedroom. I put Melissa in her crib and went to see Marie. She had an assortment of medical items laid out on the nightstand. There was the vial of what I assumed was the hormone, plus a syringe to administer it. There were also some other items I hadn't expected. A couple pills, a tube of some cream, and an N4 bag. What's all this? I asked. I thought this was just going to be a simple injection. It is, she said. The rest of the stuff is just to make things more comfortable for you. In addition to burning a lot of calories, you'll experience dehydration, so the N4 bag is there to keep your fluids up. I also got you some Vicodin. Your chest will itch and burn a fair amount as the hormone causes your mammary glands to wake up, so to speak. The Vicodin should take care of a lot of that, plus it'll help you sleep. And finally, there's the cocoa butter cream. I'll apply this on your chest throughout the weekend so you don't feel any tightness. Wow. Didn't think it would be this complicated. It's nothing to worry about. Marie finished preparing all the items. Having second thoughts? No, I replied. I am a little nervous through. Don't be. I've run plenty of computer simulations of this drug on humans. There's no risk whatsoever. Now, I need to figure out how much to give you. I need to know how much you weigh. 240, I lied. I'm gonna need a more accurate number. Let's go to the bathroom and weigh you, she instructed. So we walked into the master bath. I was about to step up on the scale when Marie stopped me. You're going to need to strip off all of your clothes, she told me. As I stripped, she made sure the scale was zeroed out correctly. Once she was done, I stepped up on the scale. I looked down at the scale fearing what it would say. 253, Marie said in a somewhat disapproving tone. Looks like you've been putting on a little weight. Yeah. I haven't been lugging around all that heavy equipment since I quit my job. Guess the lack of activity is catching up to me, I said. Well, this will help with that. Breastfeeding burns 500 calories a day. So in addition to feeding our daughter, you'll lose that spare tire, she replied as she patted my belly. Go ahead and get ready for bed and take a Vicodin. We went back into the master bedroom. I put on a pair of old athletic shorts that I wear to sleep, and downed a Vicodin pill. She, meanwhile, was scribbling away on her notepad. Since she was taking a while with whatever it was she was writing, I went ahead and hopped into bed. It was only 7 p.m., but Vicodin has a habit of making me very sleepy very quickly. Marie finally finished whatever it was that she was writing down and picked up the syringe and the vial. She was very meticulous in trying to get a very exact amount. Okay, Brian, I need you to roll over on your side. I have to inject it into your butt. She had a smile on her face as she said that. I rolled over onto my side. She pulled down my shorts and stuck the needle in. I winced a bit as the needle penetrated my skin. After she finished with the injection, she goosed me and giggled a bit. She then pulled my shorts back up. Thank you so much for doing this. I am so lucky to have a wonderful guy like you, she said. She then leaned forward and kissed me. It occurred to me that this was my last chance to have sex for a couple days, so I started to return the favor with a little heavy petting when the inevitable happened. Melissa started to cry. Sorry, honey. It's time for me to feed Melissa. I'm gonna go ahead and hook up your 4. She inserted the 4 needle in my arm, kissed me goodnight, and then went off to take care of our child. It didn't take long before I felt myself falling asleep. The next 48 hours were a blur to me. I know I was woken up every so often by Marie. She'd give me another Vicodin and help me to the bathroom so I could relieve myself. When I was awake, I was very fatigued and disoriented. It was hard to tell what was real and what was a dream. Eventually, I started to wake up on my own. My head was slowly clearing. I wasn't sure I had been out. As the fog in my head lifted, I became aware of some soreness in my chest. It didn't take me long to figure out that clearly this was a sign that the hormones had worked and that I was now producing milk. As I opened my eyes and adjusted to the light, I placed my hand on my chest to help ease the soreness only to get a hell of a shock. I ended up grabbing more than a handful of breast. I quickly came fully awake, yet, because of what I was feeling in my hand, I felt more disoriented than ever. I looked down at my chest and saw my hand grabbing my large right breast and my uncovered left breast. What the? I screamed out. I could hear Marie racing up the stairs. She burst into the room. Honey, I can explain. I was in shock over the fact that I now had 2 female breasts that I couldn't really respond to her. There was an error in my calculations, she told me. I was supposed to base the amount of the hormone based on your weight in kilograms, not pounds. So I ended up giving you a dosage intended for someone who weighs about 560 pounds. As a result, all that extra hormone in your body caused your mammary glands to become overstimulated and grow much bigger than anticipated. I have breasts, was all I could manage to say. Yes, dear. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't even look at her. My eyes were still fixed upon my new breasts. Honey, say something, she pleaded. I was at a loss for words. A couple days ago, I was just a normal guy who stayed home to take care of his daughter. Now, I'm some sort of freak with large breasts. If it's any consolation, the hormone did work. Your breasts started lactating about 6 hours ago. You can now breastfeed Melissa, she said, breaking the silence. I sat up in bed and quickly became aware of the extra weight I now carried. I was surprised by how perky they were. The skin was still pretty tight, thus preventing any sagging of my breasts. I tried to comprehend what my life would be like now that I had breasts. Will they go away? I asked softly. Marie didn't respond. I finally took my eyes off my chest and looked at her. She was wiping away the tears from her eyes. She felt horrible for what had happened. Marie? She wiped away one more tear before answering. They'll decrease in size a bit, but the growth is just too great for them to shrink back to the way they were before. The only way to get rid of them is to have them surgically removed. I wasn't very keen on the idea of have part of me surgically removed. But then, I also wasn't very keen on being a guy with breasts. So what do we now? I asked. Marie, still being distraught over what happened, was having trouble keeping her composure. We can start researching surgeons that can perform a mastectomy. Hopefully there's someone good nearby. I don't want to leave you with a deformed chest. I found that last statement somewhat ironic given my current chest. But in the meantime, Brian, since I have to get back to work, and you'll be home, probably more so now, we can still go with our original idea and have you feed Melissa. What? I exclaimed. I couldn't believe it. She gives me women's boobs and still wants me to breastfeed? Well, they are functional, and you're going to be lactating for a while anyways, so may as well put it to good use. It was about this time that Melissa started to cry. I'm surprised she didn't wake up when I screamed upon discovering my breasts. Let me go get Melissa, Marie said. Give it a try for me. For Melissa. I reluctantly nodded in agreement. Marie left the room, leaving me to contemplate my breasts. It was still so surreal. Me, with breasts. They felt totally alien to my body. I wanted to go back to my normal flat chest, but I guess for a little while, I would have to live with these handfuls. Marie re-entered the room, carrying Melissa. She handed her over to me. She gave me several pointers about how to hold and position her. It took a little while, but eventually, Melissa latched on. Initially, the feeling was a little painful. She sucked away, tugging at my nipple. And then it happened. My milk let down. A wave of calm, euphoria, and peace washed over me. I looked down at Melissa, saw her suckling at my breast and looking up at me. Everything felt so right.